If you don't learn the lessons of the past, you are doomed to repeat them. And these guys are actively trying to undermine an accurate reflection of
President
history.
Trump says he has instructed his lawyers to scour through America's museums.
It's so funny because nobody ever says, hey, Trump, why are you too focused on how sad the history of slavery makes you feel? Okay? People only fucking turn around and go, why are you calling this racist? Classic. It's not the other person that's being racist that's a problem for you. It's the fact that someone is calling that out accurately for what it is. That's the issue. Okay, so you don't give a shit about racism at all, it seems. You're so woke. Oh my God, shut the fuck up, dude. Jesus Christ. I want people to learn. I want people to know the actual history. That doesn't mean I'm woke or whatever the fuck you think woke is. I hate this shit, okay? Yeah, I'm woke, dude. I love woke, okay? I'm woke as fuck. It's so stupid. People genuinely do not realize that they are advocating for their own demise when they do shit like this. They don't realize that they're like advocating to learn the wrong thing. And then one day, when the dust is settled, they'll turn around and be like, how do we get here? How do we fucking get here? I don't know, man. For the last 30 years, you've been actively undermining education in this fucking country by claiming it's woke. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of how we got here. Wow, knowing history. Pff, what? How boring. How woke. That's literally how these guys started this fucking conversation, by the way. By just saying, this is woke, this is CRT, this is making white people feel bad. And now they're implementing censorship. Call it for what it is. This is cancel culture, actual cancel culture. This is actual censorship. This is an actual First Amendment violation. Republicans have always been the champions of cancel culture, champions of anti-free speech, while simultaneously constantly fucking chirping about how much the left actually wants to cancel and the left wants to censor people. Cancel culture and First Amendment violations, rather, happen at the point of the government intervention, okay? That's what the Republicans have been doing every time they demand book banning. Every time they demand censorship over educational materials, that's what they're doing. That's what actual First Amendment violations is. But ask the average American in this country right now, they literally all will tell you collectively, nah, it's the left. It's the left. They're the biggest pussies around. They're the ones who want to cancel shit. Because that marketing has been so clever. It's been so insidious. There has never been a moment throughout this country's history where it wasn't actually reactionary forces that have actively undermined the First Amendment, whether it be the McCarthyist, Red Scare trials that took place, all the way to demanding that certain books get banned. Even at the peak of the left is joy killers and woke scolds and love doing cancel culture in like the 2014 to like 2018, 2019, 2020 era, it was still Republicans that were responsible for the largest number of books being banned in schools. Even at that moment, when it was the peak of leftist cancel culture, it was still the Republicans that were very much engaging in active censorship. It's crazy. It's crazy that people just like don't reflect on these events with accuracy.
Rid them of exhibits he considers woke, specifically citing exhibits on slavery. President Trump targeted the Smithsonian museums, saying they are, quote, out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Back in March, the president signed an executive order directing the Smithsonian.
And by the way, the reason why I always talk about like how insidious and how pervasive white supremacist thought is that it is such a formative part of social conditioning living in the United States of America that even like sometimes black people will also entertain this shit. Not this to this degree, but like when you get educated in a white dominant society, you end up reflecting that kind of ideology without even realizing that you're doing it. No, I'm not even talking about Kanye West. Like, those are the most extreme examples. I'm talking about people that also do like the left is being so woke shit. Okay? Not realizing that like all of that is unironically just a reinforcement of white dominance.
Smithsonian Institution, which runs more than 20 museums in Washington and elsewhere, to, quote, celebrate American exceptionalism and remove divisive or partisan narratives. Last month, the Smithsonian removed references to Trump in an exhibit on presidential impeachments in the Museum of American History. Mentions of Trump's impeachments were later restored, although with changes. Now he's complaining about exhibits.
Yeah, I know. I saw pieces of the Amanda Seals goes against black conservatives video. It was insane. Jubilee done did it again, bro. They done did it again.
Exhibits on slavery. Although during his first term, he visited the Museum of African American History and Culture, which tells the story of slavery and celebrates African American.
It's called Double Consciousness. Du Bois, black sociologists discussed how black and brown people see themselves through the eyes of white society. Yeah. That's where the pick your pants up style black conservative attitude comes from. No, it's not Dubois. It's Du Bois. W-E-B, Du Bois. That's the correct way to say it. And it's deliberate. He specifically pronounced it like that. And there's a reason for it.
American accomplishments, and he called it a, quote, truly great museum done with love. It's not clear whether President Trump actually has the authority to tell any museum, including the museums of the Smithsonian Institution, what to put on display. The American Alliance of Museums, which represents museums across the country, says that no president has the power to impose the kind of review that Trump says he is now ordering. The organization has warned that the president's actions represent a, quote, growing threat of censorship against museums in America. Mary?
Yeah, lots of questions about where this goes from here. John, thanks.
I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Last week on this show, a guest shocked the table by arguing in part that slavery in America can't just be blamed on one race.
Dude, I hate this argument also, like always and forever. The argument is like, well, it hurts people's feelings to learn about the history. It's like, why? It only hurts your feelings if you want to defend it. Okay, that's it. Like, it's so stupid. What do you mean it hurts your feelings to learn about white people's participation in the maintenance of slavery? Like, you didn't do it. The only reason why it pisses you off is because you kind of want to defend it, and that's what it is. Also, fuck your feelings. What do you mean? It's just like an evil thing that took place. We have to learn about it. Like, it's so dumb. It increases hate for the country. No. You know what increases hate for the country? When dumb fucks say learning about slavery accurately hurts my feelings. That's what increases hate for the country. What do you mean? Let's just make shit up then, because it'll make everybody feel better. When you oppose genocide in loud and angry ways, what I hear is an attack on me personally, someone whose support for genocide is deeply connected to my identity. If your liberal is acting out, they might just be bored. Show them this tweet and it can keep them occupied for up to 2 years. Like, I don't understand it. I'm Turkish. Okay? The Armenian genocide happened. I think it's fucking insane to not acknowledge it. And the Turkish government certainly does not. Right? It's like, I don't understand how people hold on to this gripe to deny historical atrocities. Like, why would it be something that you are still, like, the only way that it's still connected to you now is if you refuse to reckon with it. If you refuse to understand it, there is no way You're not understanding this. The only people these things identify with is their country because they have nothing else. They're sad they didn't get to do it. No, I mean, I understand what the motivations are. Okay. I understand what the motivations are for why they want to shelter people from the fucking truth. I'm just saying it's ridiculous. The only reason why you oppose an accurate reflection of history is because you kind of either like the events that unfolded or you're still trying to, at the very least, like, continue to defend it. And you take advantage of the lack of knowledge.
And that museums put too much focus on the role of white people who participated in that terrible institution. And now tonight, that same argument is being pushed by the President of the United States. Donald Trump says that one of the reasons for his crackdown on Smithsonian museums is, quote, everything discussed is how bad slavery was. What we try to do on this program is create a platform for discussion and debate.
It's also so funny because, like, Republicans will always be like, oh, well, you know who defeated slavery? The Republicans. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. Okay, but right now in 2025, you're the motherfucker defending Confederate statues. Your friends who are wearing the stars and bars are going out to vote for Republicans. What am I supposed to do with this information? Like, what do you mean? So why are you defending it then? Okay, defend the Republicans, historic Republican Party. It makes no sense. Like, that is an active denial of the reality that you can see. Who represents the interests of the Confederate South right now? Okay, a modernized version of the same racial pecking order. Republicans do. That's it. That's it. What do you mean? You're the one who's defending the Confederate statues. You're doing that because it's a reinforcement of the racial pecking order. The reason why those statues were fucking planted outside of courthouses was to remind black people how things used to be and how things still are. Yeah. It's a very stupid meme, but it's true. It's like, you know, it was the Democrats who fought for slavery.
That reflects the very real differences that exist in this country. It's what echo chambers in our society fail to do, frankly. But on this topic, it's important to say objectively, slavery was indeed bad. It was evil, the nation's original sin. And it is impossible to understand the true history of this country without fully grappling with slavery's impact. Simply because of their birthplace and the color of their skin, the bodies and spirits of black men, women, and children were exploited for profit and power. They were forced onto ships, bound by shackles and collars that ripped off their skin. One older man described it as iron entering our souls. Some chose to jump into the waters infested with sharks rather than feel that iron. Now, once they arrived on this very soil, they were forced to work by way of the whip, despite being starved, sleep-deprived, threatened, tortured, physically and psychologically. They were auctioned off, humiliated, fearful, and separated from their families and their children. Black women and girls were raped and sexually assaulted. Many were brutally murdered and mutilated. Now, this endured for decades, centuries. And even in the places where slavery was not legal, institutions from our banks to universities were built on enslaved labor.
Oh, Abby, this is hurting my feelings. Why are you talking about this? It's hurting my feelings. Oh, man. Oh, I hate hearing about this. It's like, dude, that's what you sound like. Like, if you're the type of dude who's like, nah, this hurts my feelings, I would rather not learn about this. This is fucking insane. What do you mean? It's like incredibly important part of American history. Of course people are going to fucking talk about it. Why the fuck do you think the Civil War was fought? Like, what? It's so stupid. I can't believe it, dude. We're at that stage now. It's like talking about modern German history without mentioning the Holocaust. The fuck? Yeah, it made me snort. It's so dumb. My feelings.
the North and in the South. And for many of the white Americans who did not personally own slaves, they benefited from a caste system that concentrated wealth and political power in their hands. So, when we acknowledge the existence of black people who operated George Washington's Mount Vernon or the black hands that built the White House, we are acknowledging the existence, the perseverance, and the contributions of the souls that white supremacy sought to erase. Those people built families, they developed a culture, they were the keepers of the faith, cultivators of community. And they are the ones who deserve credit.
This also is important to understand, like, black identity. The reason why you can point to a black culture, but you can't really point to a white culture outside of what it's not, which is its proximity, its distance rather to blackness, is for this reason. Because black culture, African American culture, was designed, was created, born out of this chattel slavery system that engaged in the cultural erasure of Africans that were forcibly sent here as cattle. That's why there is a thing that you can point to as black culture, because it's born out of the collective identity of people who were enslaved and had their culture, their language, their ethnicities removed. In America, white people can point to being Polish, being Greek, being German. Some of these were not considered white initially as well, but have obviously gotten under the, being Hispanic, under the umbrella of whiteness now. Okay? You can trace your lineage back to whichever ship your great-great-great-grandfather or grandmother took. Black people don't have that. That's why they're black. It's so crazy that any sort of discourse around this is met with so much animosity because it makes people feel bad. Like, what the fuck are we doing, man? It's ridiculous. And then you have to constantly find yourself in a defensive posture against people's feelings. Like, I can't. Like, what am I supposed to do? That's your problem. It's a thing that happened, and it's important to analyze the thing that happened, especially when you are reflecting on contemporary black existence. This is a very important thing that happened that still plays a formative role.
For forcing America to rid itself of the stain of slavery. Now, all of this information, these stories are from the Smithsonian's African American History Museum. And I share this not as a lecture for you, but as a lesson. America, the superpower, is largely possible only because of the superpowers of people who went lifetimes without the same rights of generations who were boosted from their backs. True history should include everything. Yes, the evils and the horrors too. And museums are supposed to be places that protect those stories, the images, the lessons, the very things that inform so much of our current state of our republic, from racism to poverty. No matter how painful, or in the president's words, how horrible the lesson. Now, just listen to one formerly enslaved man describe what slavery is like in his own words.
You know what I'd rather do? If I thought that I'd ever be a slave again, I'd take a gun and just end it all right away. Because you're nothing but a dog. You're not a thing but a dog.
We are here in the studio with our panel, Leah Wright-Rigueur. I was actually surprised to see President Trump basically saying the quiet part out loud, that this review of the Smithsonian is not about even just something vague about reviewing history to make sure that it's fair. He wants to make it so that it talks less about slavery. What does that say to you?
Well, I think it's an effort. It's part of a larger effort to both sanewash and whitewash American history, and essentially erase all of the parts and disappear all of the parts that make Americans, that make President Trump uncomfortable, that feel distasteful, that are a reflection of.
I don't know how Abby Phillip will do it, but if I hear that motherfucker Scott Jennings say some fuck shit here, I might have to tune out. He just so, oh my God, he's going to say some shit. I know he's going to say some shit.
The actual real and horrific parts of our history. And I find it a little ironic. You know, earlier today, as I was listening to some of the commentary, my first thought was, wait a second. I wonder if the president has actually ever visited any of the Smithsonian museums. And then I remembered that in 2017, he actually took a tour of the National Museum of African American History and Culture.
Let me just play actually what he said during that tour. Listen to this.
I had the privilege of visiting the National Museum of African American History and Culture right here in Washington, D.C. It's a new, beautiful Smithsonian museum that serves as a shining example of African Americans' incredible contributions to our culture, our society, and our history. It also tells of the great struggle for freedom and equality that prevailed against this.
You don't understand, he was woke back then. He was also, because that was the meta.
Sins of slavery and the injustice of discrimination. The work and love of the people who helped create such a masterpiece is a testament to the legacy of so many leaders it honors.
So was it that he didn't believe what he read from the teleprompter as he recorded that video, or what?
You know, I'm really struggling to understand in a lot of ways, particularly.
Question, Hassan, this isn't coming from someone who supports monuments to slavers, but would you consider taking those statues down as an erasure of history? No. A monument is a testament. A monument, specifically ones that were dedicated to slavers, are created to remind people the racial pecking order. That's the reason why those statues weren't even actually fucking propped up in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War. They were propped up during periods of racial unrest, specifically during the civil rights struggle. You're not going to fucking forget about Robert E. Lee if your school is not named Robert E. Lee. You're supposed to learn about him in the books in your school. It's ironic because even Robert E. Lee at his deathbed recognized that he took a fat fucking L and said that there should be no monuments to the Confederacy because they tried it and they failed. And in the interest of unifying the country, it would be best to just let bygones be bygones. You don't put up a monument of someone like that in order to remind people of the worst aspects of history. You put up a monument like that to celebrate that person.
Given that the tour that he took with director Lonnie Bunch was actually a reflection of really the mastery that and really the care.
You do it to glorify the actions that took place. And for the Daughters of the Confederacy, which is where this like whole monument subject even started, and also the reason why you learn about like in southern states, you learn about the Civil War as a battle for states' rights to own slaves, but not that second part. They don't say the second part out loud. Is because of the deliberate attempt by the Daughters of the Confederacy to like undermine the historic truth of the Confederacy. And they started off immediately after.
Patience that historians, that scholars, that curators put into the Museum of African American History and Culture. It is not just about the horrors of slavery, although it tells that very important story. It actually follows this really brilliant model where you move through the museum and it tells the story not just of enslaved Americans in America, but also of the resilience, of the triumph. And in doing so, it tells a story that is very much about democracy and about a quest for democracy and the way that Americans both built this country, but also the story and the narrative of like a truly American experience. And so for the president, I think, to just simply erase that and push that away tells it, particularly after praising it a few years ago, tells us that this is part of a much larger agenda. This is part of a much larger agenda to erase things that really, I think the country is just refuses to deal with and is really uncomfortable with.
He said as much by ending this post with, "This country cannot be woke because woke is broke." He says, "We have to have the hottest country in the world and we want people to talk about it, including our museums." Why is he equating talking?
Okay, he's gotten dumber. Like, he really has visibly deteriorated. Even his statements now are stupider than they were before, and they were very fucking stupid even back then.
About slavery with woke?
Well, look, I think, let me just start this conversation by saying that my personal view is slavery was a reprehensible institution. I agree with your words that it was our original sin. We also fought a war to eradicate it and to get over it as a country. And that was a necessary thing that happened, and a lot of people died, and we did eradicate it, and that's a good thing. I think what he's asking is, in our museums, what defines us? Are we going to be defined by the worst moment or the worst institution or the worst mistake we ever made? Or are we going to be defined by what we've done moving forward to get over it and to become the greatest nation on the earth? My belief is that he wants...
First of all, we can't even fucking, what do you mean get over it? He's like, it's the original sin, but we got to get over it. It's crazy. He's trying to sane watch what Trump is trying to say, which is so stupid because he just basically ends up regurgitating the position of the museum to begin with, which is an accurate reflection of events and the tremendous struggle that Black people faced, and the resilience. That's like what he's describing is what the museum is currently doing. So what needs to be changed?
Wants to look at these museums, not because he wants to do away with the idea that slavery occurred, but that he wants to ask a very simple question. Are we going to present ourselves as being exceptional or not? And I think he believes there is an effort by some to continue to try to define us from our worst moment instead of try to focus and define us based on our best moments, which started when we eradicated.
For the record, that lady that's sitting there is Joe Biden's State Department spokesperson. She works for a PR firm that is now doing PR. I think it's called 7 Letters. Is now doing PR for the Gaza Holocaust Foundation, GHF, the fake aid distribution mechanism that they created. Just so you understand how fucking disgusting a lot of these monsters are. Oftentimes, it's not just the racist white man who is a major piece of shit on that table, you know? He is still the biggest piece of shit there, make no mistake. But, you know, there are others as well. Do not let them run away with it.
Slavery and began to move forward as the light of the world. And so that's what I think.
Museums, that's what makes us an exceptional nation, is because they tell the history and the story of our country, and therefore, you know, these horrible, horrific moments in our history. The original sin, as Abby talked about, when it comes to slavery, has, you know, we of course did eradicate it, but look where we've come today. And I think those museums, like to your point, make America exceptional, and in museums all around the world that document atrocities, whether it be, you know, from Nazi Germany to eradicating slavery here in the United States, you have to learn the lessons of the past, and to deny it is to defend it.
I don't think he's denying it, and Bachi may want to comment on this as well, but I think what he wants to ask is a simple question. As we present our history, are we spending most of our time focused on something terrible? are we going to spend more time as we enter our 250th anniversary focused on what this country has done to improve the lives of every single person?
I don't know what these guys think the purpose of a fucking museum is. Like what? Like museums are not supposed to be presenting like a future vision of what things are going to look like in the future. It's the history of African Americans in the nation that's doing its function.
Who lives here? We are the light of the world for a reason, because we're an improving commodity.
The question I ask when I hear you say that is, why? I mean, the idea that slavery happened, it's hard to understand what we've overcome if you don't even talk about what it was. You know, I think that kind of waters down the whole.
I don't think anybody is proposing that we ignore that it happened.
I don't think that's accurate. I think that the problem is that there are people, and Scott used the term a couple of times, and I don't think it was meant with any type of ill intent, but he said, you know, we got over it. And I think that's the problem. I think that there are a lot of people in this country who believe that for some reason we got over it. I mean, the fact is that American chattel slavery is vastly different than what Jillian Michaels and others talk about when they talk about slavery around the world. I mean, the chattel slavery system that we had was extremely transactional. It was actually codified in law, and it was based upon the color and race, as you so eloquently pointed out in your opening. And so not only when you think about that portion of where we are.
Finally, a panel where I hear Bakari Sellout speak, and it doesn't fucking immediately demand a blood-curdling response. Once again, another fucking pro-Israel awful person on the right side in this argument, of course. But just make no mistake.
Are 26 of our first 30 Supreme Court justices own slaves. The people who are on our money every single day own slaves. United States presidents, members of the United States Congress own slaves. Lehman Brothers, we're not far from Wall Street, own slaves. Brooks Brothers suits that we wear own slaves. So not only are we talking about the epicenter and the foundation of where our country was built, we have to acknowledge that. But even more importantly, and this is where I believe that Scott and I can find agreement on this issue.
Boo.
Breon and Megan Walker, two of my best friends in the world, their dad was the first African-American SGA president at the University of South Carolina, right? He was an exec at IBM, but he was one of the first, right? We're still talking about first that emerged and stood on those shoulders. I tell the story often about my mom and dad. My mom helped desegregate high schools in Hamilton High School in Memphis.
Baya Unger Sargon of Akkad's there? Oh, hell no. Is there like a contingency on CNN panels where you have to be pro-Israel, by the way? Like, as long as everybody is in agreement that Israel is the most moral nation on the planet, you can have any argument you want, any back and forth you want on other issues. Like, every single person that we saw so far, with the exception, I don't know, of the First Lady, is quite literally a pro-Israel mouthpiece.
Tennessee, my dad shot in the Orangeburg massacre. This is a part of my story. This isn't some faint, distant history. Yeah. And so the reason I bring that up is because I think that American exceptionalism talks about the fact that Black folk enslaved folk help build this country for what it is. Mm-hmm. They built Washington, D.C., but all of us are around this table. Abby, myself, all of us, not just Abby and myself, all of us are around this table because of the sacrifices and the blood and the sweat and the tears these people poured in.